So the first reform that has been introduced by Ayub Khan once Ayub Khan came into power was the system of basic democracies. Since Ayub Khan said that there was no system available to govern the country and a system was needed to govern the affairs of the state. मुल्क को चलाने के लिए country के affairs को monitor करने के लिए there was a need के basically a system was needed. So what he said that there is going to be a system divided into four parts. The lowest part is going to be called as Union Council. The part above it is going to be called as District Council. And above the District Council, there is going to be a Divisional Council. And above the Divisional Council, there is going to be the Provincial Development Advisory Council. And above the Provincial Development Advisory Council is going to be the President. So this is how into four parts the system is going to be divided. Okay, things are fine. What he said that this time elections नहीं करवा रहे हैं, but we are giving the local people an opportunity to select their representatives. भाई कैसे? What he said that the local people will be given an opportunity to select 10,000 persons of the union council who are going to be a part of the union council. Union Council is going to govern the local agriculture, the law and order of the rural areas, the taxes and the local projects in the rural areas वगैरह ये सब यूनियन काउंसिल देखेगी और इसमें 10,000 people are going to work and those are going to be appointed by the people. ठीक है जी. Now these 10,000 people are going to select या are going to appoint the people for district council. The people of district council are going to appoint the people for divisional council, and this is how it is going to be. The president is going to appoint the members for provincial development and advisory council. So this is how the system was going to be divided. ठीक है, बात समझ में आती है. The divisional council was the district council was responsible for education, sanitation, culture, social welfare. The divisional council was responsible for coordinating the activities with the government and other stuff was there. अब क्या हुआ कि भाई what he said कि this system was based on democracy. अच्छा, all the people who were a part of this system were called as Democrats. So finally, this system was implemented. So Ayub Khan asked the people of this system, ki, should I be the government or should I be the president or not? So the people said, yes, you should be the president. अब लोगों ने मना थोड़ी करना था. If they are a part of this system, they are working with Ayub Khan, why should they be refusing? कि भाई ये नहीं होना चाहिए. So basically what happened that Ayub Khan became the president and he ordered that a constitution should be made so that the country can be run. So basically, what was the basic democracies? It was a system based on four parts. It allowed the common people to elect members of union council. These elected members can then select the district and divisional council members through voting. But the president was not going to be selected. प्रेसिडेंट तो अयूब खान बन चुका था और वो डेमोक्रेट्स ने वोट किया था कि भाई अयूब खान को प्रेसिडेंट बनना चाहिए और दिस इज हाउ अयूब खान बिकेम द प्रेसिडेंट इन 1959 द बेसिक डेमोक्रेट्स वर आस्क्ड टू वोट for confidence to make Ayub Khan the president for the next 5 years. Almost 95% of the Democrats voted in favor of Ayub Khan and he became the president. So this is how Ayub Khan became the president and Ayub Khan started ruling over. Ayub Khan का rule start हो चुका है and Ayub Khan is ruling over the country now. So Ayub Khan ordered for the making of constitution and in the constitution it was said that there was going to be the presidential form of government. The president is the ultimate authority. No law in the country will be passed without the consent of the president. If the president disagrees with a particular law, that law is going to be cancelled. President will appoint governors in all provinces and all powers belong to the president. Acha, there was the issue of national language, if you remember. Once Pakistan came into being, so there was the issue that the people of East Pakistan were claiming that Bengali should be the national language and people of West Pakistan were claiming that Urdu should be the national language. So this was a controversy which was going on that time and this controversy was not resolved. Ayub Khan resolved this controversy. How did he resolve the controversy? By saying that both Urdu and Bengali shall be the national languages of Pakistan. ये अयूब खान ने कह दिया कि भाई सिर्फ उर्दू नहीं बल्कि उर्दू एंड बंगाली बोथ आर गोइंग टू बी द नेशनल लैंग्वेजेस ऑफ पाकिस्तान. ठीक है. द इशू ऑफ द नेशनल लैंग्वेजेस हैज बीन रिजॉल्व्ड एज वेल. वो वाला जो एक मसला था नेशनल लैंग्वेजेस का, दैट इज आल्सो रिजॉल्व्ड नाउ. Later, Ayub Khan introduced some other reforms which are called as his industrial reforms. Now, what were the industrial reforms of Ayub Khan? First of all, he invited investments from all across the world so that more people from all across the world should be investing into Pakistan, should be opening industries in Pakistan. Once industries in Pakistan are going to be opened, more employment is going to be there made available for the people. More employment means more income to the people. So this was his primary objective. For this, he established an oil refinery in 1962. So oil and gas development sector started to improve. The Mineral Development Corporation was set up, and the purpose was to improve the mining sector of Pakistan as well. Mining sector को improve करने के लिए Mineral Development Corporation was set up. An agreement was signed with Iran and Turkey called as the Regional Cooperation for Development, wherein the purpose was that these three countries were going to work for the progress of Pakistan. So railway links and road links were improved with Iran and Turkey. An export bonus scheme was introduced. ठीक है, wherein whosoever were the exporters who were going to export for the country, उनके लिए कहा गया था कि भाई this was the export bonus scheme, और इसके तहत जो भी एक्सपोर्ट करने वाला था उसको कोई incentives were going to be offered by the government. The industrial sector started to improve. The GDP of Pakistan improved so much that the GDP of Pakistan was double the GDP of India. हाउएवर इसका सबसे मेजर जो ड्रॉबैक था वो ये था कि भाई 22 फैमिलीज 22 बिजनेस फैमिलीज इन वेस्ट पाकिस्तान, दे हैड कंट्रोल ओवर द 80% ऑफ द बिजनेस सेक्टर. जितना भी बिजनेस सेक्टर था उस बिजनेस सेक्टर के कंट्रोल की अगर बात की जाए तो इट वाज कंट्रोल्ड बाय 22 फैमिलीज इन वेस्ट पाकिस्तान. देयर वर नो इंडस्ट्रीज इन ईस्ट पाकिस्तान. This angered the people of East Pakistan कि भाई all the favors are there for the people of West Pakistan. There is nothing for us. Moving on further towards the agricultural reforms. So Ayub Khan ordered the import of high yielding varieties of seeds. High yielding varieties of seeds means the seeds which are going to produce more agricultural output that was going to increase the GDP of the country again. He introduced the concept of mechanized farming, wherein machinery was going to be used instead of the traditional obsolete methods of farming. Modern machinery was imported. Chemical fertilizers were introduced so that the farming could have been improved. And this era of Ayub Khan is called as the Green Revolution. The word Green Revolution means that basically the purpose was to increase the farm and the output and other stuff. Also, Ayub Khan saw that the land was owned by various landlords and the land was left uncultivated because the landlords were having very large areas of land, and they were not bothered about those areas ke how are they going to manage those areas. So basically those were so large areas. So finally what happened that Ayub Khan introduced land reforms. He said that no landlord is allowed to have a land of more than 500 acres. If the land is irrigated means that if water is provided to the land, and if the land is 1000 acres non-irrigated means that in case if there is no water available to the land, in that case a person can own not more than 1000 acres of land. This was good, but what the people did, the people transferred the land in the name of their family members. They said, okay, you are saying na, can one person can own 500 acres of land irrigated or 1000 acres of land unirrigated. That's totally fine, not an issue. Basically what we are going to do is that we are going to transfer the land in the name of our family members, and yes, our one family member, each family member will be now owing 500 acres of land. So this is how they divided, and this law failed. Another failure of the agricultural reforms is that The farmers were poor, so they were not able to afford the modern machinery, high yielding varieties of seeds, or the chemical fertilizers. So this turned out to be another problem. However, if we talk about the agricultural reforms of Ayub Khan, so he also built dams in the country. Three large dams, which were the Mangla Dam, Tarbela Dam, and the Warsak Dam, were built by Ayub Khan. One important thing. The second important thing is that the Indus Water Treaty of 1960, which resolved the water dispute of Pakistan, was signed in the era of Ayub Khan. So this is another supporting point for the agricultural sector once we talk about. Another reform of Ayub Khan is the social reforms, wherein he initiated the family planning practices and he said that the population of Pakistan should be controlled. In 1961, he ordered that all marriages and divorces should be registered. Men were required to take the consent of their first wife if they want to marry another woman. Also, Ayub Khan worked for the refugee problem. A lot of people at the time of independence had migrated into Pakistan, and the rehabilitation of the refugees was still a challenge for the government. He appointed General Tikka Khan, and he was going to be the refugee rehabilitation manager, and he was to make arrangements for the refugees so that they could be rehabilitated. Talking about the educational reforms, so Ayub Khan opened several schools and colleges, a new curriculum, new textbooks were introduced, several training centers for the doctors and nurses were opened so that there should not be any kind of shortage of medical staff in Pakistan. The next thing that we have is shifting of capital. Now, what was the shifting of capital? Actually, the shifting of capital, the issue of shifting of capital was that primarily Karachi was the capital of Pakistan, but since Ayub Khan declared that Karachi was unsuitable for various purposes for location business, so therefore Islamabad was officially made the capital. Why it was made the capital? Because Ayub Khan claimed that it was a modern and carefully planned city, and Karachi was prone to attack from the sea. Karachi was becoming overcrowded, and the weather, the temperature of Islamabad was pleasant and enough to work. And Islamabad was a city that could be developed according to Ayub Khan's plan. The most important point was that the army headquarters was located in Rawalpindi. So it was easier for Ayub Khan to manage the army, the affairs of the army, as well as to manage the affairs of the country. So therefore, what he did, he transferred the headquarters from Karachi to Islamabad, the capital of the country, so that he could manage the country as well as he could manage the affairs of the army as well. So a question in the examination comes for 7 marks usually, asking ke why did Ayub Khan shift the capital from Karachi to Islamabad? So you are all going to write down all these reasons. That these were the major reasons responsible for the shifting of capital. Ayub Khan was of the idea that a space program should be initiated in the country. So he initiated the space program, and he made Dr. Abdul Salam the president of the space program. The name of the space program or the agency established was called as SUBARCO, National Space Agency Space and Upper Atmosphere Research Commission, established in 1961. The purpose was to have research over the space and other issues so that Pakistan could stay ahead with all other affairs. For the nuclear program, in order to establish a nuclear bomb for the country, basically the government had started working over it, but Ayub Khan freezed the program, and he said that there was no need of Pakistan to basically spend a lot of money over the issue of this nuclear program. There was a person called as the foreign minister of Pakistan. The name of that person was Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto was the idea that Pakistan should be establishing a nuclear program, but Ayub Khan rejected the idea and he said that there is no need to establish a nuclear program. Talking about the elections of 1965, what happened that Ayub Khan had started ruling over the country since 1958. So from 1958, it is now 1965 when the people started to say that basically elections should be held in the country, and elections are necessary. Elections should have been done. So basically, what Ayub Khan did that he said, okay, elections are going to be made. So elections were held in the country, and two contestants were there. There was one contestant Ayub Khan, and the other contestant was basically Fatima Jinnah, the daughter of Muhammad Ali Jinnah. They both contested into the elections. However, Ayub Khan was able to win a lot of votes. About 64% of the people voted for Ayub Khan, and only 36% of the people voted for Fatima Jinnah. However, the people were not happy with Ayub Khan because he was imposing his own laws in the country, and he was not listening to anyone. He was not asking for any opinion or suggestions from the people. But still, uh, people did not vote for Fatima Jinnah. The reasons were that primarily the people thought that a lady could not be a good leader. The second thing was that Ayub Khan belonged to the army, so people thought that going against Ayub Khan was not a good idea. Elections happened in the year 1965, and there was another event that occurred in the year 1965 that is called as the war with India. What happened is that a dispute started with India over the run of Kutch, which is basically the border between India and Pakistan, and that is the border at the Thar Desert, and the Rajasthan Desert. There, at that point, uh, a dispute started, and the dispute was over the issue of Kashmir. So basically, Pakistan brought its troops on the line of control, and there were the troops of India as well. A war started between India and Pakistan, and this war was stopped with the help of United Nations. Even Russia also intervened in it, and there was an agreement which was signed, uh, which was called as the Tashkent Declaration, which was to strive peace between the two countries. So this is a brief description about the war, which you guys are going to write once you are going to write an answer. If we talk about the foreign policy, now what does the term foreign policy means? The term foreign policy means that what were the international relations of Ayub Khan? How well did he get involved with the countries? So basically, under the United Nations, he was able to sign the Indus Water Treaty, and in which year it was signed? It was signed in 1960, basically. A highway was constructed between Turkey, Iran, and Pakistan. This is a thing that we have already discussed previously, which was an agreement called as the RCD. So this is also a part of the international relations. In 1965, the Tashkent Agreement was signed. That is also a part of the foreign policy of Ayub Khan. Moreover, Ayub Khan tried improving relations with the United States, that is with America, because America was controlling a lot of affairs of the state. So it was necessary to improve relations with America. China also, the relations with China improved of Pakistan, and China supplied military aid and other to India in the 1965 war. So things were going on pretty well, and a lot of reforms were introduced by Ayub Khan. When what happened that basically then after the 1965 war, Ayub Khan blamed Zulfikar Ali Bhutto that he was the person who was responsible for the war which happened with India. Now Zulfikar Ali Bhutto became angry. He left the government and he formed his own political party in 1966. The name was Pakistan's People's Party, and he started opposing against Ayub Khan, and he started saying that basically Ayub Khan was a dictator kind of a guy who had forcefully imposed things upon the innocent people, and he started encouraging the people that the people should be asking for the resignation of Ayub Khan. So the students started demonstrating, students of the university started demonstrating. There was also an attempt to kill Ayub Khan as well. People became really angry at Ayub Khan, and there was a movement as well which was for the restoration of democracy. The Democratic Action Committee was established against Ayub Khan, and the purpose of this committee was to force Ayub Khan in any way to resign. When Ayub Khan saw that the things were not in his favor, so what he did that he resigned in March 1969. Ayub Khan resigned, but what he did, he proclaimed martial law again. He announced that martial law is going to be there in the country. That is, again, the army commander is going to rule the country. So this time, Ayub Khan was not the army commander. What he did, the army commander at that time was Yahya Khan. He handed over the power to Yahya Khan, and in this way, Yahya Khan became the army commander. And again, martial law was imposed in the country. Ayub Khan resigned, he left the government, but Yahya Khan has now become the army commander. And Yahya Khan, the army commander, has now become the president of the country, and he is going to govern the affairs of the state, and he is going to look upon the affairs of the state. So this is the primary story, that what happened pertaining to Ayub Khan. Now what happens is basically a question comes for 14 marks asking you about the affairs of Ayub Khan. If we refer to the questions, so these are the questions basically, wherein a few questions pertaining to 7 marks or 14 marks come in the examination about Ayub Khan. So we are going to discuss these questions, and we are going to talk about how are you going to answer these questions. So basically, if we talk about answering these questions, so the first question is, explain why Ayub Khan came to power in 1958. And now this is a question for 7 marks. Again, it is going to be answered in 2 paragraphs. First paragraph, you are going to write a single simple statement that Ayub Khan came into power in the year 1958. Once Iskandar Mirza invited him to come into power. अच्छा जी. Then अब इसके reasons. Why did Ayub Khan came into power? Ayub Khan come into power uh, because he imposed martial law in the country in 1958. Ayub Khan was the army commander, and by imposing martial law, he was to become the head of the state. The third thing, Ayub Khan investigated against Iskandar Mirza. He found him corrupt, and finally, Ayub Khan uh, removed Iskandar Mirza, and he himself governed the entire affairs of the state. Like or reason, the country was going in crisis, the government was corrupt, and a lot of prime ministers were changed. So this political instability was not good for the country. Therefore Ayub Khan had to come into power in order to bring stability into the country. Okay, this is how the first question is going to be answered. Next question, why was the capital shifted from Karachi to Islamabad? इसका आंसर अभी हमने डिस्कस कर लिया था, so that is going to be easier for you guys to write. Next question, what were the land reforms of Ayub Khan? This is a question for 4 marks. You are required to write down 4 sentences pertaining to the land reforms of Ayub Khan. 4 sentences can include 1 point about that what was the size of the land fixed, why did Ayub Khan started, and basically what changes it brought. So the change that was brought due to the land reforms was that due to these land reforms, Ayub Khan was now able to basically increase the agricultural output, and he was able to give the opportunity to the poor peasants that they were going to be a part of the agricultural sector. Next question, what were the basic democracies? This is a question for 4 marks. अच्छा, बेसिक डेमोक्रेसीज की अगर बात की जाती है, सो सिंस इट इज अ क्वेश्चन फॉर 4 marks, you guys are required to write down any 4 points pertaining to the basic democracies. Basic democracies से related कोई से भी अगर 4 points अगर लिख देते हैं तो that is going to be enough, वो भी एक आंसर आपका कंप्लीट हो जाएगा. ठीक है. The next question is the 14 mark question. Yeah, now it is starting with a challenging statement. Industrial reforms were the most important contribution of Ayub Khan. Explain your answer. So herein you are going to write down a brief introduction. Ayub Khan came into power and he introduced various reforms, and then you are going to write down the names of those reforms. Industrial reforms, social reforms, health reforms, या whatever 5 to 7 reforms के नाम आप introduction में लिखेंगे. Then you are going to make a separate paragraph and you are going to explain each and every reform. Industrial reforms, social reforms, health reforms, whatever it is, agricultural reforms, etc. And finally, a conclusion. Now, the conclusion is up to you. Okay, whichever reform you support, ke agricultural reforms were the best because this improved the agricultural production and this led to the increase in GDP of Pakistan. So this can be a conclusion or any other thing that you think is fit. अच्छा जी, इसके बाद आपके पास है द नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन, व्हाई डिड अयूब खान रिजाइन? इफ वी टॉक अबाउट अयूब खान रिजाइन, तो दिस इज अ क्वेश्चन फॉर 7 मार्क्स. इसको आंसर कैसे करेंगे? सिंपल स्टेटमेंट, अयूब खान रिजाइंड इन द ईयर 1969 सिंस द पीपल वर अगेंस्ट अयूब खान. ठीक है, अब रीजनिंग पे आ जाएंगे. सेकंड पैराग्राफ, द डेमोक्रेटिक एक्शन कमेटी वाज एस्टैब्लिश्ड and the people were asking for the resignation of Ayub Khan. The second reason, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto had established his Pakistan People's Party and he started doing politics against Ayub Khan, and he started encouraging the people that Ayub Khan should resign. Okay. Then you are going to write down the third point or the third reason that is responsible for Ayub Khan resigning is that there was an assassination attempt upon Ayub Khan. The students were demonstrating against Ayub Khan. So basically, since when Ayub Khan saw that the situation was out of control and the people did not like him, so finally he imposed martial law, handed over the power to Yahya Khan, and Ayub Khan resigned. This is how it is going to be answered.